Welcome to this holiday-themed Tusk tradition. You can see the Christmas tree behind me. Change of location, scenery. Usually where I film this, it's just got so much Christmas stuff that I'm not gonna bother moving, breaking something. So for the month of December and maybe a little bit after, with the cleanup time being delayed, this is gonna be what we're working with. So happy holidays to everybody. Hopefully a lot of good football is in front of Alabama, and it's basketball too. Alabama sports, let's get into saying that. Hopefully a lot of good Alabama sports. Memories about to be made or coming up. Some were made last weekend, and hopefully, cross fingers, we'll have some more great memories made this weekend. Just go ahead and get into the Iron Bowl. Fantastic game. I think it was what everybody thought it was going to be. Very rarely do we just see these blowout wins at Auburn. We get them at home, we give them a good lick in the face. But at Auburn, we have a really tough time playing there. I predicted a 7-point win. I got the score wrong. I think I said 24-17. The final score ended up being 27-20. Now, I thought we would control the game better than what actually transpired on Saturday. Now, if you watched last week, I talked about a really big key was getting off to a really hot start. I think I even said, dream scenario, we get up 17-0. So, we lived my dream scenario, but it crumbled fast. And I want to talk about that and how it's concerning and what that means for this, next week game, that's Jordan, next championship game, and what that's kind of meant the past few weeks, last month or two. But staying on the Auburn game right now, I kind of said dream scenario, we get up big, fast, and take the entire crowd out of it. Take all the weirdness that happens there. Don't allow it. Me and my roommate were talking about it before the game. I was like, you get up early, and let's say they have another one of these 4 or 5 tip ball in the air and they catch it, or they return a block a punt or return a kick that we miss. Who cares? You're up 10 points still if you're up 17-0 if they score a touchdown. That was kind of my mindset. So when we got up 17-0, I was like, well, this is perfect. This is a dream scenario. If they have something crazy happens, whatever, we'll respond. Great job running the football. I've been such a critic of that now that I'm seeing it this weekend and last week versus that directional school, Eastern Illinois. But we gotta when we see something that we recognize it, we're gonna say it's good because of how much I've been on top of it and saying that it was a negative part of our season so far. So great job running the football. I think we were in that 4 yards per carry kind of range, which is great. Take that. So hopefully that will continue. Auburn hasn't had the best season, and you kind of it's Auburn. Auburn had a pretty stout defensive front. They've been really good at running the football. They're top 5 in stopping the run. So running the football versus them in that environment, a night game, Iron Bowl, that defense we did it against was impressive. That was a nice, refreshing step in the right direction. Kind of a good time. We're going into the peak of the season part. This is what you play the rest of the season to get to where we're at. So obviously I'm happy that that's starting to show that it's making strides right now, going into hopefully a long postseason run for Alabama. But with the run game, kind of taking some steps, we've seen a regress in the passing attack. It's becoming kind of obvious that teams aren't respecting the deep ball because we just don't hook up on it enough. Not that we're not taking the shots, we just don't complete it. It's here and there, okay, we're good. It's here and there. It's Ty, not being just super pinpoint accuracy on a few throws. It's some drops. You think about key drop. Think about last time we played Georgia. We had Ryan Williams walking it untouched in the end zone. We had a drop. Even last week versus Auburn, pretty sure it was Mechie had a step, and we just couldn't hook up on the first drive. So that's kind of where teams are looking at that and saying we don't really respect that. We're gonna either stop the intermediate throw or bring a guy up, start the run. Up until recently, we couldn't run the ball either, so they're kind of like, we're just going to stop that intermediate 10 to 15, and that's where we kind of made a lot of bread and butter off. So hopefully, we can continue to run the football. What's very frustrating being an Alabama fan, and it was kind of apparent in the Iron Bowl, is that, 3rd and short, 4th and short, we came down to that a few times. We have to scheme and use athletes and trickery and eye candy and motion to get these 2 yards. And it's just frustrating. I know we don't have Derrick Henry back there. I know we don't have someone of that caliber. But, it's just insane how much, we're doing 50 to 60 yards of running to get 2 yards. We're going east and west, not so much north and south, to get these tough yards. I think what comes off the top of the head is that 4th and 2 on the final drive. that we scored on the final drive. The drive that we went and scored to make it 27-20, 4th and 2 around midfield, and we went play action. I think the play was to go to Hill on a little dump pass in the flaps, but Ty has to run probably close to 50, 60 yards to get those 2 yards. And luckily, I've talked about it all season. He does not get enough credit for what he can do with his legs, but luckily he was able to make a play, nice athletic play, run through some tackles, and able to get that first down to keep that drive going. That was one of the 2 very key fourth down conversions on that drive. Another one probably a little more important that I guess we'll talk about in a second. But so those are the kind of 2 things. Running is starting to hit its stride. The passing might have digressed a little bit. So that's something to keep your eye on. And it was really weird that Ryan Williams wasn't involved at all. It wasn't even like the ball wasn't going his way. He wasn't on the field. So that was very interesting. Opposite with I almost said John Mechie. The opposite with Jeremy Bernard, that he was on the field, we just couldn't get him any targets. And so that was kind of interesting right there. But that's something to keep your eye on. I mean, I have nothing of yet that I've seen that he was injured or hurt. A lot of the post-game interviews, people were asking about it, and no one said anything around that. No. So we'll keep an eye on that. I think we're going to need him next week versus Georgia to be a deep threat, someone that they have to keep an eye on. It can't be inexistent like this past week. Now back to the Auburn's quarterback, I think did everything Auburn asked him and maybe a little bit more. I mean, no one helped Ashton Daniels out. I mean, the amount of drops was unbelievable. I have a saying I like to say, bad teams lose. I'm a big Atlanta Falcons fan. We are the definition of bad teams lose. And what I mean by that is that bad teams just find a way to lose. Another good example, I don't know if y'all watched the Florida State game, I think 2 weeks ago, when they were getting the ball back on a punt, and then it hit someone's helmet and went 30 yards the wrong direction, they didn't get it. And then they made this miracle stop again, they're punting again, and they fumbled the punt, and the other team got it to win the game. Bad teams lose. And I brought up Florida State because, we lost to them. And that might really hurt us this next week. Who knows? But Auburn did that. Not catching the football, really costly turnover. Really should have, and really should have. I mean, just can't. Really should have. I'm going to say it again. Really should have. Got another one of those fumbles. Fumbled on, just a regular third down conversion they had that, they picked up. And I think next play or 2 plays later, the running back fumbled out of bounds. And then to end the game, they muffed that punt with 10 seconds left, but still crazy things happen in the Iron Bowl is what I was thinking. We get a chance to get that muff punt, game's over. We'll need the football, but we give the ball back to them. They get to the 50. If they had a timeout, they would have had a legit Hail Mary try, and who knows what could have happened in that kind of scenario. So, yeah, I mean that's not scheming or talent. That's just getting unlucky. Those guys they want to get the football. I mean, the ball just didn't bounce our way, and sometimes you get unlucky. The most important ball did bounce our way with Ken Collins' fumble. So I am not upset, with that. We got that ball, but a lot of times we saw that. And I'm always a proponent that, you get breaks. Football's a fair game. My high school football coach always said football's a fair game. So, everyone's like, oh, if we did this or did that, the ref did that. Football is a fair game. The team that makes the plays is going to win. So that's just how it goes. I've had some Auburn fans, send me screenshots of us lining off sides or some holding pass interference calls and all that. And you just laugh because there's so many different things that, the other side didn't get called. I mean, right before they fumbled to lose the game, there was a gigantic holding call that I think was on Jan Pierre that didn't get called. And that's 10 yards at a crucial time, no timeouts, 6-second runoff, whatever. So that just it goes both ways. Calls are get made, don't get made on both sides. So that was kind of that, to score that, the go ahead, the touchdown when we were tied at 20, 4th and 2, you had a lot of people saying, kick the field goal, take the points. Now, I'm not just saying this because it was the right call, but the whole time, I have witnesses. If we really want to get into it, I have witnesses. The whole time I was saying we need to go for this. Got to go for this. And I'm very happy we did. Great play by Ty, finding him kind of late. And that was a hat trick, 3 touchdowns for Isaiah Horton. Great game out of him. Some insane throws were made by Ty to him, like that first one, back foot, like a Steph Curry kind of fadeaway shot. So that was just insane play calling, trusting your offense, belief. And I know, also I said, hats off to running the football, hats off to Talty for making these field goal kicks. I'm not going to lie. Like I said, I don't lie to y'all. I'm telling y'all we should have gone for 4-2, and I'm not going to lie to you when I say that first kick, 45 yards, there was not a doubt in my mind he was going to hook that to, the next county over. So, prove me wrong. And I'm so happy he did, but that was awesome. But I still didn't want to send him out there in that scenario to kick a game, go ahead, winning field goal. I'd rather just go for it. I was confident in us to make a play. And that drive, it kind of seemed like we were going to take some points. It just felt like a destiny drive, or whatever you want to call it. So, it's one of those calls. Hindsight's 20/20. If you make it, everybody loves you for it. If you don't, everyone's we're probably the whole fire to bore conversation's right back. See, the Iron Bowl lived up to every little bit of the hype. It was such an entertaining watch, and we found a way to win. And now here we are. I saw there was it last week after the win. Last 2 Saturdays ago after the win, Kalen DeBoer was talking to the team. He's like, if I had told you that you guys had one game to get to the conference championship, everyone would have been like, let's go, let's do it. And here we are. That's the scenario. And they went and won that game. So great job response. This team's beaten right now. They're beaten up. They're not healthy. It's shown with Josh Quavis not playing. Jan Miller went out, no extent to what he's got right now, get an x-ray. So this team is just hurt. And that's kind of why I think the offense is starting to be a little bit lackluster. Defense just keeps every week going up. But, how can this offense get better? And if you ask me, I think we just need to be able to heal, which is not going to happen because you get to go against this Georgia Bulldogs on Saturday. But they're in the same conversation. They play the same SEC schedule. They're beat up. They're rugged. So it's the same thing. You're going to average it out, whatever you want to call it. So I think it's just going to be interesting to see. They didn't look great against Georgia Tech. So we'll see what's going on. But yeah, that game on Saturday is going to be a lot of fun. And now you get into the whole okay, do we have to keep it close? Do we not? Can we lose this game? I would be very, I think we're in no matter what. But that's not the overarching theme. And there are some asterisks to that. One of those asterisks would be we get blown out, or maybe Ty, knock on wood, hope it never happens. Maybe Ty gets hurt, and that we can see what happened if Florida State happens to us. Or a more realistic scenario is if BYU beats Texas Tech, that might bounce us out because BYU has to be in, and Texas Tech's number 5. So they're not going to drop the number 5 team out if number 10 also loses because, 5 versus 10, simple math right there. So that's also a nightmare scenario that could happen. That's probably a little more realistic than the first one I mentioned. I'm going to come out with a video on Thursday, probably Thursday morning, kind of get more into scenarios and just the matchup with Georgia in general. I debated talking about it in this one, but I probably talked for too long already. I had a lot to say with the Iron Bowl. It's fun. It's always fun beating Auburn. It's always a good time beating the Cal College over there on the other side of the state. So, yeah, Roll Tide, big Iron Bowl win. Exciting to, get to play more football, meaningful football. You won the regular season SEC. You're number 1 in the SEC in the regular season. That's a great accomplishment. I know it just feels like there's been some dark kind of clouds the last few months, but that's a huge accomplishment. We need to enjoy that, and now we got to go relish in it and go play in it. So enjoying's probably over by now, especially for the team, but for the fans, we can enjoy it a little longer. Enjoy this whole week. Why not stretch it out? But the teams hopefully already turned their attention to not just finishing as the regular season champs, but as the conference champs. So we will see how it goes, and I'll talk about it on Thursday a little more in depth about what's going on. But until then, Roll Tide, stay safe.